Welcome to VaynerBox. I'm Bambi Francisco. Well, about 500 million people are on social networks, and Buddy Media wants to help brands reach that audience in those social environments. And Buddy Media is the company we highlight today on VaynerBox. And joining me as our guest host is Richard Jalichandra. He's the CEO of Technorati, and Ezra Roizen joins me as always as our VaynerBox regular. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. So let's start with Buddy Media's pitch. We have Michael Lazaro giving his pitch.
Hi, my name is Mike Lazaro, CEO and founder of Buddy Media. We're the largest builder of branded applications on the social networks. We were started about a year ago. We raised about $8 million from leading investors like Peter Thiel, SoftBank, European Founders Fund, Greycroft, Mark Pincus from Zynga. And what we do is very simple. We do strategy, development, promotion, and tracking of branded applications. We work with 50 clients. We've run 80 programs in the last year. There are 500 million people on the social networks. Display banners do not work. Apps do, not necessarily Facebook apps or MySpace apps, but the idea that the ad unit is tied to a database and the social networks and your friends. And we work with major brands to figure out how we move their business by coming up with great ideas, developing them on top of technology we have that we build once and deploy everywhere. We then promote it through our optimization engines. We work with every ad network in Facebook and MySpace to get the applications out there. And then we have a product called the Buddy Brain, which is an analytics system that shows our clients what's going on. 40% of our clients are repeat business, and we believe that the future of marketing is for brands to show up at the party with something to give the consumers, to give them a gift, and in return you'll get attention. And we've shown with many of our brands that branded applications are about 5 times more valuable than watching a TV commercial, 75 times more cost effective and effective than banner ads. And we're really building scale around branded applications where we don't have to repeat these building of the branded applications for every deal. We build once and then we deploy everywhere. And that's what we do.
I thought it was very well done. He was very succinct, the pitch. Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I think it was a little on the brief side, so you didn't quite get the depth of how the business model works and how how it all clicks together. But I think he summarizes what they do, the value proposition, the investors. I think that was useful. But it would be useful from a sort of overall pitch standpoint to get a little bit more description of some of the programs they run and how those applications actually work, and also just how the actual business works.
Right.
What I liked about it was about halfway through it, I'm scratching my head going, well, what about scalability? And then right when I said that in my own head, he addressed scalability. So I mean, right off the bat, he's already thinking about like taking what was formerly maybe the AverGaming model to social networking and addressing that same concern that AverGaming had.
Right, right. So the novelty of this, I mean, of course, there's this entire ecosystem built now around social applications. You've got app creators, and then you've got people creating marketing campaigns around them. And so, I mean, that in and of itself is novel. In terms of, you've been in advertising for a long time, so we're seeing all of these guys coming up and trying to create these new forms of new campaigns to reach the user. The way I look at it, it's sort of a very robust banner, these social applications. So, I mean, that in and of itself is novel.
I think it's novel. I think there is a market. At the same time, advertising. There's been lots of really great innovation in advertising over the last several years, sort of 5 to 10 years, and some of it's worked, and some of it hasn't been so successful. So there's things like, I think back to interactive gaming. Not of a social network kind, but just of a sort of physical kind, like Reactrix, that blasted the ads on the floor of different kinds of facilities. Great new model, creating a whole new kind of ad network, but raised $60 million, but something in that range, but didn't get to the place they were hoping to get to. So I think it's yet to be seen. We're still figuring out how to monetize social networks. We're still figuring out how these communities are going to work, and so I think it's yet to be seen how this will form. But it seems like they're off to a gangbuster start, and they're really at the cutting edge of figuring out how to make this form of advertising work on social networks.
Right. Well, they have a very different model from CPMs. I mean, they're not
Sure.
about CPMs. They're a blend of CPM and direct marketing. And
Right.
so they give the marketer that they work with, or the brand that they work with, say Fox News or Bacardi. Those are a couple of the companies. They were InStyle. So they charge them basically on per subscriber to their app, as opposed to a CPM basis. I mean, do you see that as the future of sort of banner pricing?
Well, I don't know if it's the future of advertising. I think it's a future of one type of advertising. And I like it, frankly, because it's a very engaging, high conversion opportunity. So I think from that perspective, it is really effective, and especially building a brand engagement. Where you could reach some challenges there is in reach. So how many people can you actually get to with this engaging opportunity? You can do a really good job with a small number of people. On the flip side of that, though, the social networks provide an opportunity or a platform that our gaming platforms 10 years ago didn't have. This broad mass appeal of 100 million people on Facebook or MySpace. So the ability potentially to use those mediums to reach much larger groups of people with this engaging experience is good.
What I understand with InStyle, what they did with InStyle was they paid essentially a flat, let's say, $100,000 fee for potentially 100,000 users. They ended up getting 340,000. So InStyle got tons of impressions to get the 100,000, but ended up getting 340,000. They only had to pay $100,000.
Right.
So it turned out to be a great deal for this company, for Buddy Media, as well as InStyle.
It'd be a better deal for Buddy Media is if they had some sort of participation in the upside.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm not sure if they do, but they do have recurring revenue, so to keep up with the application. So they promote, so they build, they help create the campaign, they promote the campaign, and then they have some sort of maintenance fee. So it's kind of a recurring fee.
I mean, I think all that sounds great, and I think if you can create engaging advertising and experiences for your consumer and for your audience, and particularly for the core sort of intense people who really love your product or experience, that's great. And if these guys can reach those people and they can pull them together and they can aggregate them and they can bind them closer to the brand, that would be hugely successful for the advertisers. I find it interesting that people always compare these new models to CPM-based display ads. So I think that they're just different animals. I think there's a role for CPM-based display advertising, and I think there's a role for these kinds of approaches. I think display ads is sort of the air cover. It's the carpet bombing, and you need some of that, particularly if you're a larger advertiser. TV is the ultimate carpet bombing, which is still the predominant form of advertising for major brands. If you think about these things, they're surgical. They're sort of like going right in and getting your top folks and capturing them for your brand. So I think that they're just different. There's apples and oranges almost. And I think also one of the issues I have just generally in CPM advertising is that people always think about click-through rates on display ads. They're not really about necessarily click-through rates. They're about awareness. And so
because they keep going down.
Well, they're going to go down. They're always going to go down. Click-through rates on display ads are not search-based ads. Search-based ads and display ads, again, are different animals. One's about when you're looking for something specifically. One's about being and having a brand experience that goes with a particular kind of content. They're all different animals. And so I think if I were a large marketer, I would be thinking how I'd use each of these in an integrated way, not one versus the other.
And that's really the key. You asked, is this the future of advertising? It's not. It's the future of one type of advertising. And I was just thinking as I was watching this, like if I was in the shoes of a VP of marketing or a CMO, how would I use this? And I think this would be ideal when you're launching a product or trying to create some initial awareness to create the evangelist out there. This is a great way to get some very deep engagement with a brand or a product or something, so that when you go out and do the broad-based CPM reach campaign or whatever, you've got the evangelists out there that are also talking it up.
So how does this company become like a Quigo or Blue Lithium and get the several $100 million exit through an M&A?
I think it's a question of scale, and I think for me the question would be if you're getting $300,000, that's pretty big. There's something there, but it's only $300,000 bucks. So. Right. that's not even that big of an ad buy on a display ad side. So I think
actually only 100,000 because 300.
Yeah, it was 100,000. So I mean, that's not even that big of an ad. That's even smaller ad buy.
You're making $1 million a month, I believe.
So I mean, that's good revenue. So I think that the trick becomes how do you make sure that you have and I'm sure they have a spreadsheet that has the model that if they have these guys investing that goes out to be a big business. But I think they are going to have to demonstrate to an acquirer, a substantial acquirer, that there is a very substantial business they're going to be in in that kind of ballgame.
Yeah, I think my first impression of this was it was very similar to an agency model. When you ask how do you scale this into kind of a Quigo Blue Lithium type valuation, it does need to be scalable. So, and it may be something that they're working on. I'd love to know more about it. But what I'd love to see is kind of a self-service platform where agencies could actually go in and take over and do some of the creative themselves, so that they're not in a one-to-one professional services model.
Right. Yeah. Definitely stay away from professional services.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, except to the extent that it facilitates an on-ramps, much more scalable things.
Right, right. Well, they do work with, they're sort of a top tier in terms of social app providers, and they're sort of the top tier company. Anyway.
And I would just say my last 2 cents would be figure out a way to position this in concert with other forms of advertising, not in competition with other forms of advertising, and educate. If you're really into professional services, educate the marketers how this can be used with their other campaigns. That's
a very good point. Okay, well, that's a good one to end on. Thanks, Ezra. Thank you, Richard. We've been looking at Buddy Media, and you've been watching VaderBox. I'm Bambi Francisco. We'll see you next time on Vader News.